Kirby, 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 that's the name you should know. Kirby, 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 he's the star of the show. He's more than you think, he's got maximum pink. Kirby, Kirby, Kirby's the one. Created by the one and only Masahiro Sakurai, Kirby has become one of the most iconic Nintendo franchises that is still going strong to this day, to a point that we get new Kirby content almost every year. If only Metroid could have this treatment. And because I was a PlayStation kid, I never grew up with Kirby. It wasn't until 2010 where I would experience my very first Kirby game with Kirby's Superstar Ultra for the Nintendo DS. And I enjoyed it so much that it made me a Kirby fan. And for playing future games like Return to Dreamland, Epic Yarn, and both 3DS games, I can place the series in my top 5 favorite Nintendo franchises alongside Mario Party, Pikmin, Mario & Luigi, and of course, Metroid. And so because I love Kirby, I think it's time he gets the spotlight in the series by mastering his very first installment. And in case you're wondering, yes, I will do Metroid before the end of the year. Welcome to a new episode of Retro Achievement Masteries. I'm Jonathan Wolf, and today I'll be getting all 35 achievements in Kirby's Dream Land for the Nintendo GameCube using the Retro Achievement website while getting all achievements in Hardcore mode, which disables specific emulator features like loading save states, the use of rewind, slowdown, and emulator cheats. Now, despite the fact that Kirby's Dream Land is the shortest game so far, and that this game might not be that bad considering that Kirby has a bad reputation of being too easy, which I really fucking hate by the way, don't let that fool you, because this set is out for blood, featuring a challenge run where if you fail you have to get a game over to try again, to a deathless run where you have to beat the game without dying.
No way!
And probably the biggest obstacle in your path to mastery, the inclusion of a whopping 10 Damageless achievements. And you know how I mentioned here and there the fact that Damageless achievements have eternally scarred me for life, right? Koala Kong, where we have the challenge of not jumping or taking damage. A recurring challenge in Retro Achievements that has become the bane of my existence. Or the many Damageless achievements that have eternally scarred me for life. With our final boss challenge, which is another Damageless achievement. Oh, God damn it. Well, I just have to man up and reclaim these achievements for this series because I hate myself. But with that in mind, let's begin our mastery of Kirby's Dream Land. Now, the game doesn't tell you any story when starting the game, but the plot is very simple. This fat bird, King Dedede, has stolen all of the food in Dreamland, and it's up to us, the pink puffball, to stop this penguin and rescue the food. Wait a minute, this plot sounds very familiar. So yeah, basic plot for a basic game. But that doesn't mean that's a bad thing, since for Kirby's first game, it has solid gameplay which leads to a fun time. So for this mastery, we need to play the game at the very least twice. Once on normal, and another one using this game's New Game Plus extra game. What I'm going to do for this mastery is try to get every achievement that you can get easily in normal mode before heading into extra game, so that we can make the extra mode as simple as it can be. However, there are some achievements that you cannot get during one visit, which forces a replay of the level. But because most of the achievements require exploring the level, if I missed an achievement during the normal run, I'll get it during the extra game. And so we begin with Stage 1, Green Greens, which doesn't have any level specific achievements, which makes sense since this level is very straightforward and linear. We do have this hut that contains some energy drinks, but other than that, we take a ride on this warp star and fight our first mid-boss,
Poppy Brother Sr.
For this fight, you want to avoid his jumping and inhale his bombs and spit them back at him 3 times, which is very easy to do. Once he's defeated, we continue our walk through the forest, avoiding these big old bears, some
Waddle Dee,
and
Bronto Burt!
and even some chickens. And after we make it to the end and climb this tree from the inside, we go to the bottom and engage with our first boss,
Wispy Woods.
Now, like I said at the beginning, there are a whopping 10 Damageless achievements for us to get. But as for normal Wispy, if you just stay right next to him, you can avoid his spit attacks, which is the more dangerous attack since his pups can go up or down. And you can also have an easy time getting the apples and spitting them back at them. However, you do want to be careful with Wispy because, unlike other games, Wispy actually does damage if you get near his face. So make sure you be careful if jumping is needed, which is going to be a very important aspect in extra game. But if you can spit back the apples he drops back at him as they hit the ground, we will defeat this tree with no damage on our first try and get Windy Woods, as well as green scenery for finishing the first level of the game. Moving on to stage 2, we have Castle Lololo. And this is our first level that has level-specific achievements besides the level completion and Damageless challenges. Stage 2 has a total of 6 achievements. However, you cannot get all of them in one go, since one of the achievements requires you to do a speed run to the boss once you get to the second half of the level. So instead, I decided to go for the other 5 achievements, starting with Debut Concert, which we can get by inhaling this microphone and spitting it out, creating a noisy screen nuke. And after using this mic, we want to go to the top of the same room, since there is another door that will give you access to 2 energy drinks, which we have to get for another achievement that asks us to collect 5 of them throughout the level without dying. After collecting both drinks, we head to the next room and find this bomb. You want to make sure you inhale it before it explodes and then spit it to these enemies to not only defeat them, but also get the pink bomber, which, yeah, basically implies that this bomb is a power-up and it's not that very good or reliable because it moves way too fast. Unfortunately, once I entered this next room, I made a mistake. In order to get an energy drink and another power-up for an achievement, you want to head down here and enter this door. But because I forgot which door to take, I took the upper door and made progress to the level, which unfortunately, in this game, you're not allowed to go back into previous rooms unless it's a side room, which not only makes me miss the energy drink achievement, but also I'm missing an extra power-up achievement. But that doesn't matter because, like I said, we can get it during an extra game, so it's not the end of the world. So we continue on and take this warp star to the next part of the castle and confront the mid-boss, Lololo, where you need to inhale and spit back these crates that he throws back at him, which is really not that hard, to the point that I would even say that this is honestly the easiest fight in the game. And so we go into the second half of the level, where we have a door at the top of the room which gets surrounded by spooky ghosts and spooky mummies. But inside the room, we will get an energy drink and our third power-up, the spicy food. And this item is very important, since there is an achievement that requires us to reach the boss while we have this power active. And because I can't get the energy drink achievement, I can just skip the rest and go to the end. So, after getting the curry, I get too hot for Vermont and tried my best to get to the boss of stage 2. The distance between the curry room and the boss is 4 rooms, but thankfully all rooms are small in size. But the first room can be the most problematic, and that's mainly due to the annoying aspect about this game. And that's the fact that Kirby will inflate if you press up on the D-pad, which is the same button that you have to press if you want to enter a door. And I hate this. I am so glad that they removed it in future Kirby games to the point that I do not miss it. Not to mention that Kirby also does this bounce, which can throw you off and definitely not be annoying for a Damageless achievement in the future. But sadly, because I stumbled in the first room, I failed the curry run. And so we move on to the boss, and the boss for this stage is the owner of this castle, Lololo. Again, however this time, with a friend. We have Lololo, his, twin, girlfriend, sister, his other half, because it was actually one entity that got split in half. I don't know, the anime made me confused about the origin of these two. And just like Wispy, we have another Damageless challenge, and this one is by far the easiest Damageless achievement of the game. For this fight, Lololo and Lololo will be pushing boxes from one side to the screen to the other in one of 4 different layers. And basically you have to inhale the boxes and spit them back at them. The best strategy for this fight is to always stay on the center, so that you don't get cheap shotted by either of the Lolos when they spawn in. Once they spawn, try to inhale the crate from behind so that they don't run into you while you inhale the crate. And then, as they spawn again, get behind them and spit the box back at them. You could try to hit them before they go into the holes, but if you want to play it ultra safe, I recommend you just wait. And repeat the process 3 times for both of them, and you'll defeat this duo Damageless and get Push and Pull and Laughing Castle for completing stage 2. Moving on to stage 3, we have Float Islands, where we have 2 1-up achievements for collecting the hidden 1-ups that are located in this level. This first part of the level is really not that bad. We do have a bomb item at the start, but as long as you hug the ceiling, you'll avoid almost all damage. Just make sure you spit your air puff back at these Bronto birds that will try to ram into you. At the end, there's going to be a mic that you can use on these nuts and crabs. And once they're dead, we can go through the door and inside a cave. And inside this cave, we have the almighty Kaboo, where he will reveal the ancient secret of life. Just destroy these bottom blocks and a new way shall open for you. And in the sub area, we have this underwater section, and if we make it to the end, we can grab our first 1-up and get Cavern Plunge. And going back to the cave, we want to head down and break this wall while avoiding the Gordo. And here we have a split path. If you go up, you can get a Maxim Tomato to restore all health, but the way to go is the way down. And so we move to the final portion of this level, where we have to make it across this pirate ship. And at the bow of the ship, we have another curry we can use, and once we make it halfway, we can enter some quarters and collect our second one-up of the level alongside an energy drink. But more importantly, we get Main Deck Stowaway, which is our final achievement for this level. So now that we have both 1-ups, we make it to the back of the ship and ride a warp star only to get ejected to the clouds by a big old whale. And head over to the boss, Kabula. Which, fun fact, while writing the script, I actually discovered that Kabula is actually a female. Now, unlike every single boss in this game, Kabula is the only fight where you need a power-up to defeat her. In this case, we have this mint leaf, or sweet potato if you're living in Japan. Which, now that I say that out loud, makes sense because this thing looks more like a potato than a leaf. And with this power-up, we can inflate and spit air puffs back at Kabula and take down this blimp. Which basically means that yes, the boss against Kabula is a shoot 'em up, where you need to avoid Kabula's cannonballs and dives. And as long as you prioritize position instead of damage, you can beat this blimp no problem. But when it comes to the Damageless challenge, so let's go ahead and see how we do against this blimp. And I almost got hit on the first bullet. That is awesome. Now, one thing I guess I should mention this real quick. If you fail to get the achievement, don't worry because you will have a... Well, there you go. I failed against Kabula. You know what? I kind of knew that was going to happen. Alright, so you're probably wondering as to why am I not panicking since I didn't beat Kabula damageless, considering that, you know, you only have one shot, right? Well, that is because there is actually a second chance for you to get the damageless achievements on the bosses, which is going to be a lifesaver for extra game. Plus, it's going to make the retries less of a pain in the ass, because if you try to get the damageless achievements and end up getting a game over in the main stages, you will be sent to the beginning of the level, which means that if you want to have another attempt at the Damageless achievement, you would have to do a boss run back that would make the Dark Souls trilogy run backs feel like a walk in the park. But with level 3 completed, we move on to stage 4, Bubbly Clouds. Starting things off, we have this cloud opening where we have the introduction of Scarfies, probably the scariest enemies in the Kirby franchise. However, a simple puff of air will take them down, which will get us above 100k points and give us a new achievement. During the boss rematches in Castle Dedede. And wait, we're keeping score? Yes, we are, because now we have 100k. Continuing into the palace, we avoid some boomerangs and energy beams with some questionable hitboxes and deal with, quite literally, shady ghosts. God damn it, I'm so funny. Please subscribe. And then we move on to this cloudy section where if we decide to go to the right on the split path, we will fight the mini-boss. But if we go over to this dead end on the left, we can enter a secret area that contains a mint leaf, which for some reason doesn't give you an achievement, some health, but more importantly, our first one-up of the level, which will give us Pillars of Treasure. And after grabbing our first one-up, we move on to the mini-boss, Krako Jr. And this fight can be tricky because Krako Jr. does have some erratic movement, but if you inhale the Waddle Dews and spit them back as he goes down, or up because I'm very bad at timing, you'll defeat Cloud Child and move on to the second half of the level, no problem. In this section, we have yet another mint leaf that we can use to destroy this block wall and get some health while avoiding some Gordos and spikes. And as we make it through these Waddle Dees, we defeat one last Scarfy and head into this Starry Sky room, where we can get the third and final curry item of the game, which we can use to destroy these blocks and make it to the end of this very long hallway. But before going through the door, we want to jump where this pillar is and make it to the top of the room and then head to the left. And once we get to the end of the path, we can jump through an invisible wall and collect our next one-up, giving us Secret of the Stars. And with that, we move on to the final room of the level, where we have to float to the top while avoiding enemies. However, before we move on to the boss, which is through this door, we get a call from the moon, which tells us to subscribe and ring the bell if you enjoyed this video so far. And if we get to 500 subscribers, Jonathan will actually do Super Mario Kart. And as we go closer to the moon, we can go inside it and end up in a secret area where we are free falling for health and some 1-ups. And if you manage to get both 1-ups before they go through the floor, we will get our final level specific achievement, Celine's Crescent. And so we move on to the boss, where we have Krako again, but this time with an upgrade. He's now a big old cloud. This fight can be pretty hard to beat damageless, since Krako's attacks can catch you off guard, causing you to fail the challenge, mainly due to the fact that he can do them in an instant depending the situation. Krako will attack every time he's at one of the two sides of the arena, where he will do an electric spin attack, spawn a Waddle Doo, or move to the other side in one of two ways. By casually floating to the other side directly above you, or by doing a swipe through the ground, which you can either jump over it or stay in the corner and get out of the way to avoid a sudden electric attack. Krako and Krako Jr.'s fight are completely different from... Nice. Are completely different from the, from extra mode. Okay, so one more hit, and this cloud is dead. And bonk. So with 2 damageless bosses failed, we end level 4 and get into the sky and head over to the final level of the game, Stage 5, Mount Dedede. The final level of the game is an interesting one, since you have to refight all 4 main bosses of the game. However, you have to go through these bite-sized levels and collect the... Kirby? Yeah, I don't know the implications of this part, but whatever. But basically, you need to collect the Kirby so you can remove the Gordo that is blocking the door and act as the boss fight. And once you defeat all bosses, the path to the king will be open. Now, because we have to refight all the main bosses, this is your second chance for you to actually get the damageless achievements, if you didn't get them during the first time you fought them. And for my first boss, I went to Kabula and tried to beat it damageless. I was not paying attention. Oh, damn it. Okay then, so I guess we're gonna go over to Krako thing later. Well, that sucks. Now, because I wanted to get both damageless achievements out of the way before finishing the game, I made the decision to fail the deathless achievement and focus on the no-hit runs. You may have noticed that ever since we started the game, we've had this icon on the bottom right. That icon belongs to the achievement Perfectly Round, which requires you to beat the game without dying. And if you play your cards right and manage to do all damageless achievements on the first try, you can master this game by just doing 2 full playthroughs of this game. But because I failed both the Kabula and Krako fights twice, I decided to not only take the death, but also get a game over to reset the level and have another shot at Kabula and Krako. Oh, look at me pause buffering. There we go, okay. But yeah, what makes the... I would say the biggest issue with Krako is when he moves, because... Whoa, that was close. Because yeah, you don't get to tell if he does the swipe or he just casually goes to the other side like this. Don't get me. Okay. Poop the Waddle Doo. And bonk. Thundercloud. And once we defeat all 4 bosses, it is time for the final battle against King Dedede. King Dedede is a pretty challenging fight, since he has an absurd amount of HP, and he only has 2 attacks that can spawn ways to damage him, those being his stomp attack and his hammer attack, which he will smash it depending where Kirby is in the arena after he takes it out. Dedede also has 2 other attacks, those being a dive attack and an inhale attack that has a questionable hitbox that will definitely not be infuriating in the near future. Now, one thing you also want to be careful about this fight is that the stars that Dedede spawns can actually do damage to you, so make sure that you're at a safe distance when you start to inhale the stars. Also, never stay in the edges. Because of the fact that the stars do damage to you, if you try to drop on them and inhale them, you will get damaged very easily. Not to mention that if he does the hammer attack and you're at the edge, trying to avoid the hammer is practically impossible. We have to do a... Well, shit. Door. Oh. Also, yeah, that's actually another thing I gotta warn you. Never be in the air. Because the last thing you want is to get hit by his jump. And there we go. Victory in the ring. We defeat the king Damageless, eject him from his castle, return the food back to Dreamland, and achieve Give Back the Food, finishing our normal playthrough of Kirby's Dream Land. And after the credits roll, we will have a special screen that will teach us how to enable Extra Game, a more challenging version of the game, which we have to beat in order to master this game. Now, before I went into Extra Game, I decided to replay the game until Castle Lololo to get the Curry achievement out of the way. So to recap, in order to get this achievement, I need to get to Lololo and Lalala while having the Curry item active, which means that I have to cross 4 rooms while trying to avoid enemies and enter the doors smoothly. And my god, this achievement was very annoying. Not because it's hard, but because if you fail to get the achievement, there is no easy way to retry, unless you either get a game over, which will send you back to the beginning of the level, or reset the game and replay through green greens and the first half of the level to try again. I will say that the 2 hardest parts of this run are definitely the beginning and the end. The beginning because I had to try to get around the bounce that Kirby does so that I can enter the doors after grabbing the curry and the door after the ghost circle, and the end because of this stupid ghost that kept hitting me, pushing me back, and making me run out of time right as I get near the damn door. But after 14 minutes of close calls and a couple of game overs, oh, don't float. Yes! Curry run! We did it! Alright, cool. Now we can finally do extra mode. So now it's time for the extra game playthrough, which is this game's New Game Plus, where we have tougher enemies that deal double damage, but besides that, it's just the same game as normal mode. Although the biggest change about extra game are the bosses. But until we get to them, let's go ahead and beat this extra adventure. Starting with green greens, our first obstacle is Poppy Bros Sr., where he moves at blazing speeds to the point that trying to hit him is almost impossible, just because he tends to combo his bomb throws very constantly. But after his defeat, we can just float past everything and make our way to Wispy. Well, there you go, I died on level 1. The fight against Wispy is the same as normal, with the 2 exceptions that he can now make Gordos rain down alongside apples, and his air pops are faster. So if I take damage, I'm not going to worry. Especially considering that if you get a game over, you have to redo the entire level. Case in point. So sadly, I wasn't able to get the Damageless achievement, but don't you worry, since we can get them during the boss rush at the end. But for now, we finish Extra Stage 1 and get Icy Green. Moving on to Castle Lololo, we will get the 2 final collector achievements that we didn't get during our first playthrough. Those being the 5 energy drinks without dying and our final power-up item. Just to recap, for the energy drinks, in the room with the mic, which is the second room of the level, you want to head to the top and go through this door to get the first 2 energy drinks. Once we get to the room where I made a mistake of going through the wrong door, we want to go downstairs and enter through this door, where it will take us to an underwater area filled with glunks and moving Gordos. And you can actually see your 3rd energy drink. But also, when we move to the next room of the side area, we will find a lollipop that will grant you invincibility and our next achievement, Star's Lollipop. And after grabbing some candy, we go to the mini-boss against Lololo. And this fight can be scary, since Lololo will now throw a Gordo after throwing the crate. And because this is extra game, Gordos do a stupid amount of damage. The best strategy for this fight is to send back the star at Lololo when he backs off at the 1st or 2nd layer from the top, since he moves slower than the bottom 2 layers. But after defeating Lololo, we go back to a familiar room with some curry and grab our 4th energy drink. And once we get to the vertical room right before the boss, we can grab our 5th and final energy drink, and if you manage to grab them all without dying throughout the level, you'll be able to get Mountain Brew and our final level specific achievement of the game. And as for the Lolo duo, that's what I'm gonna call them from here on out, unlike Wispy, this fight is basically the exact same fight as the Lolo fight in normal mode, with the only difference being that they now move faster. But as long as you employ the same strategy from the normal fight, you'll beat this duo and get Shove and Tug, as well as Laughing Too Loud for beating Extra Stage 2. Stage 3 is very straightforward since we managed to get all level achievements, although this level did contain some cheap enemy placement that would make the shotgunners from Tomb Raider 2 feel like great game design. Because that's my luck. That's the curse that I have to bear. Also, we have cheap shit like that. And that is not a compliment. But after going through a pirate ship and get blasted by a whale, we go to the clouds and fight Kabula. Now, because I didn't want to get a game over in stage 3, I decided to defeat Kabula and tackle the Damageless achievement at Dedede's castle. But for this first fight, as you can see by this footage, you can tell that I was using a bit of an exploit to try to do the Damageless run against this demonic blimp that will train me in aerial combat. But for right now, we defeat Kabula and finish Extra Stage 3 and get out of the water. And so we go to stage 4, Bubbly Clouds, which has some interesting hazards that are present only in extra mode. Starting things off, these parasols are now hostile, which means that once they detach from the Waddle Dee or Waddle Doo, they will start chasing after Kirby. But as long as you stand your ground and don't rush, this section is very easy to handle. Hi. Oh my god, I knew it. Sometimes. Next up we have the mid-boss, which is Kracko Jr. And one of the most fascinating things about Extra Game is that both Kracko fights are completely different from their normal fight. For Kracko Jr., instead of going back and forth throwing bullets and spawning Waddle Doos, in Extra Game he has a semi-circle pattern where he will spawn bullets and bombs as he dives down trying to take you down. Now this is gonna sound crazy, but after playing through this game multiple times, I've honestly found the Krackos on Extra to be easier than the Krackos on normal. And that's mainly due to the fact that as long as you stay in the left corner of the screen, for the Kracko Jr. fight, he will never hit you, and once you head to the corner, you want to inhale the bomb and wait for Kracko to finish his bounce and do a swipe only to deal damage to him with a star. But also reduce Kirby's hitbox so that his swipe back doesn't damage you, and as long as you repeat this pattern, this fight is incredibly easy. So after we defeat this Cloud Child, we continue on and get to this room with the curry. And for this part we want to be fast and careful, since now these shooting stars will do damage if you interact with them. But after dodging stars and destroying blocks, we make the final climb to Kracko, and just to show it, I decided to do the free falling section in the moon, where you now have to avoid Gordos like if this was Super Meat Boy. Now one more thing I want to address is that if you try to get the Celine's Crescent achievement in Extra Game, you will notice that there's only one 1-up during the free falling section, which essentially means that if you want to get Celine's Crescent, which as the description says, you have to collect the 3rd and 4th 1-up. In order to get the achievement, you must play on normal mode, otherwise you're not getting it. But with that, we move on to Kracko, and this fight is honestly the easiest fight in Extra Game, because if you stay in the edges, just like Kracko Jr., you will dodge almost all of his attacks. So Kracko will attack from the center of the arena and do 3 types of attacks. He'll go left to right, spawning bombs that you can return to him for damage. He will do an electric attack that he will never hit you if you stay on the edges of the arena. And as a final attack, which is the more dangerous one, he will do a charge attack directly at Kirby that you can just jump over without the need to float over him. And the best time to jump is when Kracko is about to charge after the wind-up he does by moving back before the charge. And as long as you get the jump correctly, this fight becomes incredibly easy. But after dodging charges and electric cycles, we defeat this Cloud Damageless on our first try and get Rainy with a chance of explosions, as well as Shot Out of the Sky for beating Extra Stage 4. And so we move on to the final stage, Mount Dedede. And here we have another chance to get the Damageless achievements we missed during the normal levels. The first boss I tackled was Wispy Woods. And after a couple of fails, with one of them being a lucky shot by Wispy, which, you know what, I simply just cannot be mad. I managed to beat this tree on my 3rd attempt and achieve sharp leaves. Which means that it's now time for the final Damageless fight before Dedede Kabula. And this is one of the 2 fights of the set that I was dreading. So the way Kabula works in extra mode is very similar to his normal fight, with the exception that she moves faster and her charges are almost instantaneous, which just by hearing that may not sound that bad. But what makes this fight so difficult is, for some reason, Hal thought it would make all the sense in the world if Kabula's single shots started tracking you, to the point that the curve of her shots can be absolutely hilarious in the most stupid way possible. And because her shots move faster due to extra mode, this fight normally is almost impossible to be damageless, unless you have a sort of degree in aerial movement and combat. But thankfully, there's a silver lining called pause buffering. Also, yeah, I'm sorry that this is basically the entire fight, but what the heck? Oh shit. Yeah, I'm trying to not spam, but yeah, sometimes the input does not register. Okay, he's almost dead. Yes! Yes! So once we defeat this over-aggressive blimp with air, which is very ironic, we defeat the 3 remaining bosses and head into our final battle against the king, which unlike Krako or Wispy, where he has new attacks and patterns, the final battle against Dedede is basically the same as his normal variant, with the difference that he now moves faster, which means that this fight is an endurance test where you need to survive and position yourself in the perfect spots to inhale his stars from his jump and hammer attacks, avoiding his fast dives, and try to not throw your controller due to the questionable hitboxes of his grab attack. And this fight will take all of your concentration. All of your skill. All of the pattern recognition you can think of. After 28 minutes of fail after fail after fail, oh, thanks for looking the right direction, Kirby. There was a pattern there. There was a pattern, indeed. Yeah, that's what I should do for when he dives after a jump. I hate that this is way too close to me. Also, in case you're wondering why I jump before I inhale, is so that I don't have to deal with the floaty air time of Kirby. Get out of here! Yeah! Royal Nemesis! Oh my god, that was so annoying. Oh. I got him on a pattern at the beginning. I'm gonna say this right now. I had a harder time here than Kabula. No food for you, and that's for beating extra mode. And with that, we've conquered extra game and get the true ending of the game, featuring an enemy roll call, and as a reward for beating extra game, we also receive the input that will give us access to config mode, which will allow us to change the amount of lives and hit points for Kirby. So if you want to do a no-hit challenge, now you can, for all you masochists. But the most important feature of this mode is the sound test, where you can not only get access to all the music tracks and sound effects of the game, but also get the achievement Pocket Jukebox, which means that we now have 2 more achievements. The first one being Do the Kirby, where you need to pause the game and stare at Kirby. And after a couple of seconds, he will start doing a little dance, where he will award you with an achievement for your patience, and you're admiring for his dance skills. But once we do the Kirby, we have one more achievement, the Deathless Run. Alright, and boom! And there we go. We have done it. Come on. Give it to me, damn it. Time! Perfectly round. And there we go. When it comes to difficulty, I will give Kirby's Dreamland an 8, and that's mainly due to the Damageless achievements. If you take your time and study your enemy patterns, the no death run is incredibly easy. Although Mount Dedede can be hard because of the fact that there are no heals throughout the level. And of course, the extra Damageless achievements are what gives the set 2 additional points in difficulty. For the quality of the set, I'll give the set an 8 as well, since this set requires you to explore every level at its fullest and acquire all of its collectibles. The only reason as to why this is not a 9 or a 10 is because I wish there was more challenging runs similar to the Curry run achievement, like reaching the Warp Star with the Curry in level 3, or have a challenge run involving config mode, or, and I can't believe I'm gonna say this, have an achievement on beating extra mode Deathless. And in case you're wondering, yes, I do suffer from selective masochism Thank you for asking. But at the end of the day, I'm very happy with the quality of the set, and I would not change anything about it, which comes to show that we're dealing with a good achievement set. And as for fun, I did enjoy remastering this set, but looking back at the footage, there were a lot of BS moments during Extra Game, especially when it comes to Dedede's grab attack and the very questionable range that he has. But at the end of the day, I had a good time, and I'll give the fun rating an 8 out of 10 once again. And as for the hardest achievement, it was a battle between Extra Kabula or Dedede. It was pretty obvious, but a part of me wanted to put the curry run just for shits and giggles, but no. Extra Kabula and Extra Dedede Damageless were basically the two achievements that were going to be in competition. But I have to give the literal crown to the king. As for the hardest achievement of the set, we'll go for King of the Ring. So if this set didn't show you that Kirby games can be brutal, then I don't know what will. But at the end of the day, I still enjoy Kirby's first adventure, even though it does suffer from first game syndrome due to the lack of moves he will later have in future games and his flagship copy abilities. But despite all of the absent abilities, this game is still enjoyable, and I would recommend if you're a Kirby fan and want to see his humble beginnings. A big thanks to Bry Leafy and Dude1286 for making this set. And now that I'm starting with the Kirby franchise, I'm very excited to continue my mastery path throughout one of my favorite Nintendo franchises, for better, and unfortunately, for the worst. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Retro Achievement Masteries. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, and if you want to see more Retro Achievement content, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about new Masteries. For our next game, we return to the PlayStation 1 with one of my favorite licensed games on the console, Toy Story 2 Buzz Lightyear to the Rescue, which I'll tease right now that it has an absolute 10 out of 10 when it comes to the quality of the set. It is by far one of the best sets we've done so far, and I'm very excited for you to actually see it. If you have a game in particular you want me to master, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget that if we reach 500 subscribers, I will master Super Mario Kart and Super Mario Eclipse when we reach 1,000. But that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Jonathan Wolf, and I will see you all on my next Mastery. Take it easy, stay awesome, and always remember, retro gaming will never die.